John, the show today, I've got so many questions. I hope that I don't have more questions than I have answers, because I have spent an exorbitant amount of time on this subject and preparing for the show today. However, there is a piece of me that has a ton of excitement about what we're gonna talk about today. And that is that I believe right now the greatest residential property remodel, and you can argue with me about that, in the United States is potentially happening without a building permit.
Oh, you're talking about the White House.
Okay. I didn't prep John McKay for this at all today.
I don't think
you guessed right away.
I don't think that a building permit is required.
Okay, so yeah, let's chit chat about this a little bit, McKay. So apparently, on October 15th, which not that long ago. Last month, I mean, by one day. But on October 15th, apparently, there was a dinner that the president attended with what was described, in his words, I can't do the voice, as two geniuses.
Okay.
Two geniuses were at dinner with him, and they said to him, well, sir, you can start tonight.
Oh.
And to which Trump said, I said, what are you talking about? And they said, you have zero zoning conditions.
Oh.
You're the president of the United States. To which he said, I said, you've got to be kidding me.
That's funny.
Okay, now this was reported on CNN. I double-checked this and triple-checked it. There was a PBS story that came out that this was on. However, I can't find anywhere who these two geniuses are that were referenced.
Well, when you look
I'm assuming one of them is the Attorney General, but I don't know this. I don't know enough to know.
When you look at some of the additions and subtractions that have been made by previous inhabitants of the White House, I would think that they pretty much can do what they want.
Okay, so yeah.
They just don't let you take stuff after you're done.
Right.
Bill and Hillary.
Okay. So here's the problem, and you know what is you're right, and I think, I don't mean this the wrong way, I think you don't even know why you're right, but you're right, John. So here's the background on this. Okay, there is what is known as the National Historic Preservation Act of 1966.
Okay.
Section 106 of I told you I went deep on this. Section 106 of that act says it exempted, I mean, I don't even know who did this, but it exempted the White House, the U.S. Supreme Court, so apparently we can head there for remodeling next.
Okay.
The U.S. Supreme Court and the U.S. Capitol building were all marked as exempt in that 1966 Historic Preservation Act.
Well, that would have been when Johnson was president, so I don't see him as an architectural genius, so it must have been somebody else.
So it's interesting to find this out, right? And that's obviously a massive, massive change in this situation. So, but this goes back even further. Like when we start to look at this, however, what just shocks me from being in the building industry, from being a licensed general contractor as well, from being around this, what shocks me, so as early as July, there were reports about these renderings and the ballroom coming out. And there were stories that reported that it would not interfere with the current building. Now, there's debate, and I went to like 20 different sites. There's debate on whether somebody from the White House said that, and there was actually a retracted story on PBS, or a reporter said that as they framed a question. Okay, because fast forward to what happened, and over the course of the last 2 weeks, and we have basically seen the entire east wing demolished. In fact, they stopped. It's hard to get photos, right, too, because you can't just fly drones out there. No fly zone.
Yeah, they'll shoot them down.
And so there's some long-range pictures and stuff that we've seen, but we haven't seen a ton of activity. However, there's been enough dump trucks leaving there with rubble that, from what we can gather, mostly the east wing is gone. Okay, now I will tell you, if I'm trying to be objective in this situation, so the East Wing housed the First Lady's offices. It also housed, I believe, emergency response bunker underneath. There were pictures of past presidents down there in that. However, in looking at the rest of the picture, I think there was the gift shop, and that's where you would enter the White House. However, in looking at the pictures from it, I will tell you, it was not an architectural genius that did the East Wing.
Yeah.
And so when we go back and look at that, it was added in 1942. So East Wing was added in 1942. There is some historical significance with what's gone on in there, but when I looked at those pictures, honestly, it wasn't super impressive.
Yeah.
And so, not that that's an excuse. I'm not a historical preservationist by any means, but it wasn't overwhelmingly amazing as an architectural piece, I will say. Mm-hmm. The other thing that you have to look at, and it was interesting, this actually happened to me. I try to always relate this back to our local real estate market. Mm-hmm. So this actually happened to me last week, and it's happening more in Tri-Cities. And when I read this quote as I was doing this research, it made me think about this. I had a client send me a text this last week, and the text just simply said, "Did you know they were going to tear it down?" And I was like, and so I was like, well, gosh, I got to think about my transactions here, because we do a lot of transactions. And then I'm like, oh, I know exactly which one. Then I'm like, oh, that's who's, ABC's number, Jane Smith will say's number. Uh-huh. And I was like, oh, well, wow, they were just going to do a massive remodel there. So I went back and looked, and I was like, oh, yeah, when we sold that house, they had told us, in fact, they had an architect come scan the house. And so I was like, oh, I remember this one. We particularly, an architect came in and scanned the house so that they could do all of the drawings for the remodel. Okay. That's my evidence. And not that I needed evidence, but I said back to the client, like, I absolutely did not know. Like, you wouldn't pay an architect for 2 days of work scanning a house and finding all the walls and stuff, who's then going to go draw. So I called the builder, and I talked to the builder, and I said, hey, I thought you guys were doing a remodel over there. And they're like, no, man, the architect worked on the plans for like 2 weeks, tried to make all the changes, and then came back and said it would actually be less expensive and more structurally sound to scrape the lot and start over.
Wow.
Now, the previous owner had some emotional reasons to be attached to the house and it had been a family home. And that's always really, really tough. And I've personally been in those situations before where we've bought houses or we've bought office buildings and then we've scraped them because this exact same reason. And so this is the reason that the White House gave initially, is that they said it was found that it would be less expensive and more structurally sound to destroy the other building and then construct an addition. So they're starting over in that case. And
interesting.
And so you've got very, very valuable real estate. But here's the thing: when you balance like what we have, you've got to ask the question. And I know you and I aren't going to solve this on this radio show, John, but when is that building going to have historical relevance that a committee's going to decide about versus an individual deciding?
I don't know.
I don't know either, right? And I'm not sure anybody does. And I think that's kind of like what part of the shock was, especially in this situation. And I've watched, probably 10 different interviews from different. The National Trust for Historic Preservation said it's a congressionally chartered nonprofit, and they asked to put a pause to demolition. Well, if you saw the grounds, no pause happened there. The American Institute of Architects said that they think it should be guided by preservation first. This is their values, performance driven, and accountable to the public. I can think of one thing in that situation that they're not being, which is likely accountable to the public in that situation. However, and then there was a quote on X by, what's her name again? Oh, Hillary. She posted on X. Here's the post. This is the last one. It's not his house, it's your house, and he's destroying it.
And I remember the responses. She got roasted. Yeah, well, you guys took $38,000 worth of china and furniture when you left. So, and then you might want to sit this one out because of other activities that went on in the White House too.
Yes.
So people said maybe you need to sit this one out.
There has been so many responses to this, many we can't read on air. And so there's a lot of people weighed in on this. But so we've got cost as an issue. We've got the Historic Preservation Society and review process, which I'm pretty confident at this point, none of that happened.
Yeah. Well, and it's not being used. It's not being done with taxpayer money either. So
yes. And the only thing, though, is if you can't dig deep enough to find out yet who is paying for it. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I mean, is it going to be the Hapo Ballroom like track over there? like, are they paying for it? No. So we don't know, right, at this point. So it'll be interesting to see. I've got so much material on this because it's from a building standpoint, it's crazy to think that you'll just haul off and demo something like,
oh yeah,
hello, you can't just tear things down around here. Like when we've cleared properties and stuff, like we have to have a demo permit. Generally, we have to be testing some of that material to make sure there's no hazardous substances in it when it gets hauled off. From what I can determine, it's at the Potomac. The East Wing is now at the Potomac Golf Course. They put a construction road in there, and apparently, I mean, it's ironic as Trump is the president, but apparently they're using the rubble to like reshape a few of the holes on the golf course. So you'll be able to golf over the East Wing at the Potomac Golf Course in the near future. So this is probably the first, they're labeling this as the first major change to the White House in the last 80 years. So that's pretty significant in and of itself. So the East Wing that was recently demolished was added in 1942. And then the last big overhaul was done by Truman in 1948 to 1952. He actually moved out of the White House and was living across the street during this. And that's when they went through and they redid floor joists. They redid a bunch of the plumbing. They added a bunch of cement and really kind of reinforced the whole thing. But when you look at that, that's a long time. Like when you think of a last major overhaul in 48 or to 52, I mean, that's basically taking us to all of the alphabet homes in North Richland. I mean, all of those are like 44, right? 44 to 48, right in that range. And if that's considered the last major overhaul, I think there's a perspective where I take a lot of people through those houses and they're like, yeah, this isn't going to cut it for me. Like this isn't going to meet the needs of the modern user. So there's multiple design theories that you have to look at for what's happening there. And like one of the quotes from one of the preservationists was, we don't expect that all buildings can be frozen in time, right? It's not realistic to think with the technologies and what we're doing and the number of, as things grow, as staff grows, computers, power needs. I mean, shoot, even look at like, I can drive down streets where there's no garages and I see electric cars. Like even some of the design standards of our houses, like I see electric cars that have extension cords running out side windows out to their car so they can charge their car at their house. Like there wasn't a conduit that was ran to the front of the house or near the driveway to kind of to make use for some of the modern technologies. And so part of that is I do think is what is trying to be done here with the addition of this massive ballroom. And
are they going to make it smart, like a smart house?
I hope so.
That'd be kind of cool. It comes in there with his cell phone.
I gotta think it is crazy to think of what's gonna be done there, and that's the other thing is no one really has an idea. Also, I'm not sure if we will know, right? Because if they demolish the East Wing and that was the bunker, right? The security bunker and command center for crisis times, like, I mean, I'm gonna reckon a guess here, but I gotta think they have to like replace that somewhere. Like we're gonna need a new one of those, right? And so, it's not like they're gonna release the plans for how to get to the secret bunker. So like we're probably not gonna know all of the things that are gonna be happening. They are saying though that the ballroom is slated to be done by the end of Trump's term. So that's like what, January of 29?
Yeah.
So they are thinking, I mean, I think they were saying the latest estimates were it's a 90,000 square foot. It will dwarf the size of the existing structure of the White House. That's also, I will tell you, that's also some of the complaints from the historic societies of like, is this really going to match, match the main facade of the White House and go with the aesthetic? So I think that's yet to be determined in this situation. I will say though, also, this is not the first unauthorized demolition that has been done by the commander in chief. And so if you go back to, there were some art pieces all the way back to Trump Tower in 1980 at Manhattan when Trump Tower was built there. There were some Art Deco sculptures that were supposed to be saved. Turns out they were not exactly saved. The Met had been donated a bronze grate cover at the front of the building, and that did not get saved in that. So people have had some issues with some of these things that have happened. So I've got a summary for you, McKay.
Okay.
Here's, as just a real estate guy that doesn't know much about a massive scale project like this, but has been through permitting and reviews and historical buildings. Number one is I got to say I'm fully biased, right? Like this is what I do for my living, and I love construction and I love real estate. And so that is, I'm biased in that sense. However, my summary of this is that Trump is just crazy enough to get it done, right? Because let's look at this, right? Like I said myself, okay, we went over and we found the Historic Preservation Act, back from 1966. The White House is exempt here, right? So a lot of people, I think, will look at this demolition and say that's crazy, right? But then you have people like me that go back and do the research and say, I looked at the pictures and stuff, and yeah, it was part of the campus and stuff, but God, it wasn't that great.
Yeah.
Now,
so if you can make it better,
and you're going to get this amazing ballroom and host people from around the world, great. But here's the issue. Here's the other side of the argument. He didn't tear down like the main section, like the big house. Why not? Because by the terms of using these exemptions, it appears, and I think that's what the problem some people have with this, it appears that he could. So why didn't he just tear down the main house, the whole thing right in the middle?
Well, I have no idea.
I think because that would absolutely freak the world out.
Oh, yes, it would.
Right? So he's just crazy enough to get this done because he's like, okay, I think I can tear this down. I don't know. I'm just going to. but I think, there's going to be some backlash, but probably won't like completely grind to a halt as if he like tore down the main
sure
structure.
that the people that were behind it with him, I'm sure that they were aware. I'm sure they did the same research that you did.
I don't know if I'm as sure as you are. But,
I'm pretty sure.
So at the end of the day, here's the deal. I think it's going to get done. Right.
Yeah.
And it's probably there are portions of it that are going to be absolutely gorgeous and functional. I do hope that, people will have access. There'll probably be a more amazing gift shop than there's ever been there with the Arc de Trump, which I guess is what's coming next. I mean, that's just what I've heard. I don't know, but I do think it's going to get done. Is it exactly how anybody else would have done it? Absolutely not. But it is. It's just. To me, it's a crazy real estate story. The craziest that I've seen. Have there been times when I have wanted to build something myself without a permit?
Yes.
Yes, but I have neighbors. I'm also in the real estate business. I'm going to get in trouble. You just don't do that, right?
Yeah.
And so it's shocking to see something like that happen. When it's kind of a normal, every day, you just don't do that. I think the original quote that I started the show with was what's telling of it all is when you have a developer that just says, I can start tonight. You've got to be kidding me, right? So so that's what I'm going to end with. That's what I've got. I hope as a country we get this beautiful building that I will take my grandkids to visit someday. And we will return the White House to the glory that it deserves as the people's house for sure. And regardless of what goes on, I'll be right back here likely next week.